The evolution of attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD, is not an uncommon disorder. It is believed that about 5 to 10% of people suffer from ADHD. It is also the most commonly diagnosed disorder in children, although we are unsure of the exact amount of people that suffer from ADHD. This is because it is believed that a large amount of women that suffer from ADHD have not yet been diagnosed. There are 3 types of ADHD: ADHD-HI, or ADHD hyperactive impulsive, ADHD-PI, or ADHD inattentive, and ADHD-C, which stands for ADHD combined. Symptoms of ADHD-HI are fidgeting, trouble sitting, no patience, interrupting conversations, and nonstop talking. Symptoms of ADHD-PI include trouble focusing, constant confusion, daydreaming, missing fine details, and becoming bored easily. The symptoms of ADHD-C include any combination of these two. Now that we know more about what ADHD is, we should take a dive into the evolutionary history of ADHD and why it's here today. We're going to go all the way back to the Stone Age. These nomadic groups of people were hunter-gatherers. It is believed that within these groups of hunter-gatherers, there were always individuals that were more nourished than the rest of the group. It is believed that these individuals suffered from ADHD and had the genetic variant DRD47R. This genetic variant is linked to an increased amount of food and drug cravings. It is believed that individuals with ADHD still have this genetic variant today. Ultimately, individuals within these societies that suffer from ADHD had a better rate of survival as they were more nourished compared to the rest of the group. It is believed that a lot of the symptoms associated with ADHD worked as an evolutionary advantage. It is believed that symptoms such as impulsivity and being easily distracted worked as an advantage while living in the wilderness. Historically, impulsivity worked as an advantage when they were faced with an unexpected threat. It is also believed that the symptom of not being able to follow directions worked as an advantage when there was a need for creativity. The symptom of hyperactivity in children with ADHD is often a disadvantage in school. But for our ancient ancestors, this was an advantage, as hyperactivity and the inability to focus on one subject at a time often led to the greater amount of resources collected. This was studied in the Ariel tribe in Kenya, as they are a nomadic group of people. Researchers found that individuals that suffered from ADHD within these groups often were more successful in their hunts and acquired greater resources. This is because people that suffer from ADHD are often more creative and able to come up with ideas that don't fit the standard. Another reason that individuals with ADHD did better in their hunts was because individuals that suffer from ADHD often have a hard time sitting still. This need for constant movement made their hunts more successful. We're now going to look at the evolutionary history of ADHD through the study done by Jensen et al. Titled Evolution and Revolution in Child Psychiatry, ADHD as a Disorder of Adaptation. Jensen et al. Took a dive into hyperactivity, one of the main symptoms of ADHD. They concluded that hyperactivity was an evolutionary advantage as it was needed in order to adapt to our environment. Individuals with ADHD had more hyperactivity and would explore their surroundings more, which then helped them in adapting and understanding the environment that they live in. They also found that this may have helped wire the brain in order to fit their environment. This wiring of a brain helped develop motor skills and muscle memory. Another area that they looked at was the rapid shifting perception of individuals with ADHD. Today, this may be a disadvantage, but many years ago, this was actually an evolutionary advantage. The symptom of rapid shifting perception often led to individuals greatly scanning their environment. Individuals with ADHD typically had a higher rate of scanning their environment. This was an advantage, as it made them better at spotting predators. The next symptom of ADHD that they investigated was impulsivity. Impulsivity gave them an advantage when they were wanting to pounce at a prey or if they were running from predators. As mentioned earlier, this would make individuals with ADHD more likely to be successful during a hunt. Because we as humans used to live in such harsh environments, Jensen et al. Stated that being these 5 things were essential. The first, as mentioned earlier, is rapid scanning. This played an advantage when they entered a new environment and when they were on the lookout for predators. The next being quick to flee or attack. This was advantageous when it came to running from predators or attacking prey. The third was hyperactivity. This was advantageous because you needed energy in order to have a long and successful hunt. The fourth and final one is being hypervigilant. While living in these harsh environments, it was important to get information from all senses at once. Although Jensen et al. Made sure to include that today a lot of these symptoms are not advantageous in our current society. Although having ADHD and all of these symptoms were greatly advantageous when we were a nomadic society. Next, we will be looking at a study done by Laurier et al. Titled How Evolutionary Thinking Can Help Us to Understand ADHD. Laurier et al. Had stated that today, many symptoms of ADHD may be disadvantageous as in today's settings, we as individuals are expected to sit and listen for hours. This is often a struggle for individuals that struggle from ADHD. But looking at our evolutionary history, ADHD is very advantageous. Laurier et al. Are arguing that ADHD is advantageous in some environment, but disadvantageous in others. Laurier et al. Had also stated that individuals with ADHD were more adventurous and more social, and so they were more likely to produce offspring. Since individuals that suffered from ADHD had a better evolutionary advantage, that meant that they were more likely to survive and pass their genes on to their offspring. This is an example of natural selection. In our history, having ADHD was a favorable genotype due to the higher survival rate. Not only were individuals with ADHD more likely to survive, but they were also more likely to reproduce due to their higher rate of adventure and also the fact that they were more social. Due to the fact that individuals with ADHD were more social, this often made them a preferred mate choice. This is an example of sexual selection, as individuals with ADHD became a preferred mate choice, and therefore the amount of individuals with ADHD greatly increased as they were producing more offspring. Further adding to the idea that ADHD is found in our evolution, ADHD has a genetic basis, and it is believed that it can be inherited. Today, we find many families where ADHD is passed on from generation to generation. Although, it is worth mentioning that genetic factors are not the only thing that play a role in ADHD. Just because an individual has the gene for ADHD does not mean that they will have ADHD. That is because genes interact with our environment to produce an outcome. In conclusion, although having ADHD in today's society can be a disadvantage, evolutionarily it was an advantage. This is shown through how the symptoms of ADHD were extremely advantageous in our nomadic societies. This is also shown through the genetic variant DR D47R that is linked to ADHD that was extremely advantageous in nomadic societies as well. So, through sexual selection and natural selection, the genes linked to ADHD were passed down generation to generation, which is why we see many individuals with this disorder today. And I'm proud to say that that includes me and my family.